Hello and welcome to another episode of the Captain's Table Podcast. My name is Paul Berserker01, Batman Shelley, your humble host and space bartender here at the Astropub, your space professor, I guess, on the Astro Historian, and your facilitator here on the Captain's Table Podcast. Before we get started, I do want to have some big news. First of all, for those of you who have been following us on YouTube, that YouTube process of moving everything over to doing all of the shows on its own YouTube channel is now complete. As of yesterday, as of this morning, that channel finally got its YouTube partnership. So if you're watching this now and have been like, I haven't been seeing a Captain's Table podcast for several months, it's probably because YouTube hasn't really promoted the videos to you. So now they should be in the process of being promoted to you more frequently. So keep that in mind. If you haven't already done so, please do make sure you subscribe there. We still do post videos to the Spotify. So make sure you check that out if you haven't already, especially if you watch this on YouTube and you want to have kind of a lighter weight way of listening to the podcast. I usually do the full thing shrunk together into one big 3 hour, 2.5 hour sort of um, audio file. But before we get started on the actual topic for today, let's introduce some folks. I'm going to start with Major Star Stuff. Who are you? What do you do in Star Citizen, and where can they find you?
Yeah, hello everyone. I'm Major Star Stuff. I'm an IRL T specialist and T educator who just enjoys flying pretty spaceships and doing all sorts of stuff in Star Citizen. I'm kind of a noob at all the gameplay loops, so I'm not sure why Paul brought me here today, but I guess we're going to find out. I guess due to my T background, due to my T background, I could probably talk a bit about supply chain at least.
There we go.
Yeah, I do occasional Star Citizen videos as Major Star Stuff on YouTube with a bit of a focus on xenolinguistics, so the languages of Star Citizen, and I run the Intergalactic Tea House on Twitch. That's
nice.
Basically
so that's funny you mentioned that because I am going to be doing a Banu primer, or I'm almost done with it. And when that comes out, I'm going to I actually talk about Major's videos. There's two-parter video if you want to go learn how to do to speak Banu, because that document that they did for the Banu language guide is thick. It's 300 plus pages of like lore, culture, and language and grammar and all sorts of things. So I couldn't ever capture that in a lore video, all of those details. So and as Major has shown, it is difficult to do it in one video. To talk about the language, you have to do more.
it sure is.
Then we have Mr. Red Monster SC. Who are you? What do you do in Star Citizen? Where can they find you?
Yeah, so I'm Red Monster SC. I run the Red Legion, which is an industrial focused organization, and we do mining, we do salvage, we do group operations, and really trying to push the envelope as far as what's capable in the industrial gameplay right now today. So we're definitely looking forward to the future of industry. When you mentioned this topic coming up on the agenda, I pushed things out of my schedule. I said, I've got to be here to talk about this because it's something I'm very passionate about. I'm an engineer, background with supply chain and manufacturing. And so, taking those skills, bringing them into my favorite little space sim has been one of the joys of my life. So
nice. Yeah. So that, as you mentioned, the topic for today is industry. Kind of the future of industry. We're going to talk about is industry currently, where it's looking at where we're going towards in this year, and of course long term. And of course, because it's Star Citizen, we'll talk a little bit about the industry ships they've released this year and what ships they're still lacking. Those sorts of things. We'll bring some ship there in there for as a treat for all of you, since we all know how much Star Citizen fans loves their ships. So, but before let's why we get started? Get started. Let's talk a little bit about industry as it stands right now. Just general vibes and feelings. Is it good, bad? Is it getting better, worse? Because this was the year that CIG said that they were going to really focus on improving the gameplay, improving quality, improving, less new features, more content, and then improvements. Red, your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so they've really tried to aim their focus towards polishing the gameplay experience with what's existing there. I think we saw a lot of promises from CitizenCon, talking about crafting and some of the base building. We'd see those early this year, but so far no like real strong indications. But they do bring in the Align and Mine event, which is kind of now a combined effort between securing a station, having logistics to transport batteries up to get the orbital laser ready, priming that, firing it, and then opening up a cave with some really rare materials that then you have to go in and mine. I think their aim is certainly to diversify. We've got new mining minerals for the gemstones, but that hasn't translated fully into the ores yet. I think that's in the future. And as we saw in CitizenCon, they're moving away into an ore quality rather than having different ores within each deposit. So um,
Okay.
I'm excited to see that. That's the thing I'm really holding out for because that's really going to define how the raw material collection from mining feeds into the supply chain for refining, crafting, and the future.
Major, your thoughts so far? I know you said, as you said, you're not super into this sort of side of things, but based off of your maybe outside perspective, what is industry thus far? Is it better, worse than it's been before? What's its current status in your mind?
I should probably rephrase it. It's not that I'm not super into it. It's just that
Mhm.
I'm at the very beginning of my
Your journey.
industrialist
Yeah.
career of sorts. So I still don't know how to properly use mining gadgets and stuff like that.
I'm with you there. I couldn't tell you how to use a mining gadget to save. I don't even know which ones are the good ones. And the problem is with um some of the events you get mining gadgets, and I'm just like, I'm gonna grab it. I'm afraid like I'm gonna grab it and go to someone like Red Monsters. Look what I got. And he'd be like, cool, you got a crappy one. Good job. The worst one.
If you just want to box them up, I'll take them off your hands. We'll find good homes.
Go ahead, Major. Sorry.
Yeah. So no, sure. I'm the proud owner of a loaner hull C for my merchantman. So that's one of the pains that I've been having. I tried it out last week with auto loading with let's say limited success. If someone wants to send me the money back that I lost at Major Star Stuff in game, thanks. Other than that, we mentioned supply chain now twice already. I think you said it, Red. I mentioned it briefly. For me, what fascinates me is to see slowly but steadily, hopefully, for those interdependencies to get integrated into the game. So you're no longer just hauling for hauling's sake or mining for mining's sake or PvPing for PvP's sake, but especially with this ongoing event, which I haven't been really playing but only watching on YouTube, is that you can group together different combine different gameplay aspects into one, and you have to rely on each other. So those people mining down there will probably need protection by someone in the air protecting them from PvPers or from other players. And so I find that fascinating, also to see that coming more into effect, so that industrial gameplay hopefully gets a reason, raison d'être beyond just pulling boxes.
Yeah. I do. I
At
agree.
some point.
I'm some very similar to you, Major, in that sort of sense. One of the big things, for those of you who don't know, I run an organization called the League of Relic Enthusiasts. And for the longest time, we've been collecting relics and medals and artifacts because we just thought they're neat. And as of 4.1.1, now CIG is like, all those relics that we put in game that have no value? Well, now you need them to do anything with Wicklow. So it's like, aha, I've been secretly collecting just extremely valuable items now that people are like, oh, you want a Polaris? I have one of the few things you need for the Polaris that most people don't know how to find because they hadn't bothered studying the stupid things. And I've been studying where those things spawn and how to get them. And so I'm like, I accidentally memed myself into relevance in the game.
You maybe saw I called you an industrial scale relic hunter on YouTube today.
Oh, there we go. Thank you. That is sort of the thing is like that sort of like cross pollination of different gameplay loops now require, you have to do all these different things. So it's no longer just, well, I can go PvP or I'm going to go here and fight these people because I want to. I am just going to go mining or I'm just going to go do cargo hauling. Now it's like if you for Wicklow, you have to kind of be a little bit of everything, or at least know somebody who's doing a little bit of everything in order to get those assets. So, um, there's those. That's the kind of a nice factor that I think is coming in there. I still think it's a little basic, but it's better than it was before. And of course, bugs are a thing. It's still Star Citizen. I do like the fact that they made a different level of minables, be it between ship minables and hand minables. Those sorts of differentiations are nice. I'd like a little bit more differentiation in salvage, more nuance when it comes to cargo hauling instead of just like, oh, I just need to have a ship that can carry 8 SCU of cargo. Like, no, I want to be able to either break them up or have them in smaller boxes or whatever. There's a lot of detail. Go ahead.
You absolutely need to have like a cargo transfer station to convert a 32 SCU box down into whatever denominations you want. And, I think that's key for cargo hauling. But I mean, that's just one of my pet peeves to jump in on there.
Yeah, no, that's one of those small things where it's like this would improve the experience, but it's not quite in there yet. But I can also see it as something they'll do in the future, or they'll investigate when they're not just making sure the trams don't explode or decide to go off into space. All right. We kind of talked a little bit about this already. Let's go into the fun parts about the ships that have been added into the game, because this year seems to be heavily influenced, heavy industry influence in terms of ships. So far we've gotten the Misk Fortune, the Drake Golem, and the ATLS Geo. The only ship that I can think of that wasn't explicitly industry that was released was the Heartseeker, which was just the Super Hornet release. Was there anything else that I'm missing?
There was discussion in the Q&As about an RSI starter salvage ship.
Oh, yeah.
That's still coming out, but that's as far as the rest, yeah, it's been really industry heavy, and I think a lot of I'd say 2 hits and 1 miss for the vehicles there. But
are you saying that we have the misfortune of having a miss?
Yeah.
An aptly named ship. But yeah, I like them so far. Like the Drake Golem surprised me, mostly because of the price. I wasn't expecting them to actually give us a starter ship that was a mining ship versus a starter ship that was their profession starters, like they did with the Vulture and the Prospector.
Yeah.
But and of course, I'm a robot stompy man. I'm a big stompy robot man at heart. So having the Geo and those jump jets are so cool. They're so fun to play around with. It's just everywhere.
Have you jumped out of a ship with it yet? You're doing the Titanfall drops.
Yes. And I discovered you could kill people with them pretty easily. There's a mode you can use that will like almost instantly kill people, and I'm not telling CIG what it is or anybody. You're gonna have to figure that on your own. It's definitely not intended, but it works. So, but it's a kind of the Geo. I think is like a great example of how the focus seems to be on industry ships this year more than combat ships, which I think is a indication at least of the direction they're going with this year in total. We're obviously going to get a lot of combat, but it does seem like there's going to be a lot more focus towards industry as a whole, either through fixing little problems, things like the raft changing was a big note for this last patch, where they've completely overhauled the raft to be a completely different ship, but not necessarily in a bad way. Still got some issues, but Major, your thoughts on any of the ships? Have you had a chance to play with any of those ships?
I think the Golem is a great addition for maybe even people like myself who want to get into the mining gameplay loop without having to worry too much about mining heads, gadgets, and stuff like that. To just have a bespoke, powerful, I think, Red,
Yeah.
somewhat Drake style mining laser, but just to be able to grab a fairly affordable starter ship, hop right in, and get into the mining action. I think that's a great addition. I still hold it looks more like a Argo ship than a Drake ship, but it should be orange. But yeah, I think that's a great addition. It's twice the shame now that our friend Jack couldn't make it tonight,
Yeah.
because I've been following his streams. He's been having a lot of fun with the with the brain freeze, with the Argo.
Raft?
What's it called? Yeah, no, with the
The Geo.
he wants with the jetpack, the
Oh, the
Geo with
Geo.
it.
Yeah.
Thank you. With the Geo and the jetpacks, it was a joy to watch him try them out on stream for the first time. So I guess we're all waiting for combat variants of that, or questions like,
Yes.
is this going to become so the jetpack, is this going to be an exclusive thing for the Geo, or for me raises questions, are jetpacks going to be a thing in general, which arguably would change also the way that ground combat works, right? Additional dimensions
Yeah.
that may be added to that.
I will say that CIG rarely builds bespoke assets, especially these days. If they're going to build something, they're going to build something as something they're going to use for multiple different things. So then putting those jump jets on that Geo tells me jump jets aren't. That's not the last time we're going to see jump jets. We're going to see jump jets on a lot of other things. So hopefully,
I think
and
the
then the new
Geo they
raft.
yeah, the
Oh,
new
sorry.
raft.
yeah. The new raft does well. The Geo, I think they really nailed the maneuverability. Like, it's fun to get into. I've got people in my org that have just done security for years because they started with mining, it got boring, and they haven't done it in years. Finally, they're back into it, and we can go as a group, with 6 Geos that are breaking, and we come back along with a rock to scoop, and people are really enjoying that. One point you mentioned that they rarely do bespoke assets, but we saw a couple of those with the Drake Golem. And
Mhm.
my one criticism is we have ore pods that they've had bugs that they are not working properly on the freight elevators. Those are somewhat fixed now with the current PTU, but Drake comes in with a new ship and they redesign the ore pods to now be basically a 16 SCU variant, but it's a new interface. It's why, like, that was my only criticism of the Golem. Like, I loved the price point. I loved that it did come with a powerful enough laser to have success and some modules so you can start getting into the hardware. But that the ore pod thing really drove me crazy because they've sold refinery ships that are in concept. They're going to have to go support this now 16 SCU variant instead of what we thought was kind of the standardized ore pods. And they could have just lined 4 of them up. Like, there was no need to go redesign and implement a new type of ore pod with a different dimension when they already have an existing ore pod that is broken,
Mhm.
right? And so that, like, to me was every time I've had to bring up an ore pod that didn't come up the elevator properly, right? And the workarounds I had to do for it, it was like a slap in the face to say, "Ha, like, your existing stuff, it's all legacy. We're getting rid of it for bigger and better and unique. Like, there might have been a standard, but we're gonna throw it away." Um,
Would you be okay
that was
with
my one.
them swapping out the current pods for something like the golems, this bespoke ones?
So
So
go,
like basically turn them into 8 SCU crates rather than the little unique
yeah.
felt bags.
What I mean, we already saw them do this with like the prospector cages around the
Mhm.
ore pads. Like, they redesigned those when we were able to like start removing. They're taking the pucks, like the collapsed ore pods, on and off the ships now. Like, they're doing redesigns on it anyways. I'm not particularly tied into one visual or like physical representation of the ore pod. I just want something that works and that's going to be standardized. If we have an option to get an increased capacity and maybe with higher rep levels, go up to a 12 SCU internal container, but still have the same dimensions.
Mhm.
Um, I'm not tied to one specific design. I just want it to be a standard
You just want it to
that is
work.
accepted and
Yeah.
works, right? And so, um, you know, the other ship that they released, the Misfortune, um, it's kind of like the Rock DS of salvage in that it does it half as fast, but it also doesn't waste two people's time. It's only like one person. So with the one laser and then having it be like the exact price, right, of the Vulture, like you can't upgrade between the two. Like you're stuck with one or the other. So it was just I appreciated them revising the Prospector chassis and getting into that, but the Fortune itself, I feel like is less effective because of essentially cutting your output in half.
Okay. Um, let's move on to the more.
Unless you put a bunch, in a Polaris and then go Polaris
Yeah.
claim.
Um. Yeah, I was going to say talk about the raft, but I think we already talked about the raft. Did you have anything else to say about the raft, Major Star stuff?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, as an appreciator of the raft in general, it's been one of my favorite ships forever. I appreciate the recent changes now that it has additional SCUs and they got rid of the 4 sections there and just have one grid. But Red, you mentioned we talked about the ore pods. How happy are you? How excited are you for them to have changed this so that the ore pods can now go to the cargo elevator and
gosh.
you can basically treat them, and then there's no longer a need for cargo ships, as
Yeah.
far as I understand, right?
Yeah, so you can deliver directly to the refinery with the orders being done. I believe you can refine directly from the pods when they're in storage, although that's consuming the ore pod along with that process. So they've got to work something out there. I'm a much bigger fan of the ore pods actually working, and I appreciate that it's doing what it should have done. I think we were all kind of gutted with what was it, like 324, when they were releasing the cargo elevators. That we see all of the issues that maybe caused that to get delayed, and that physical space, those kind of the connection points, maybe has been a big one. Um, so I like the way that they've gone with the raft. I think it makes a lot more sense to maximize the space you have. It makes it a much more effective hauler. And the only downside is my beloved ore pods don't fit on there anymore. So when we done a couple of weeks as a large scale org that we use the raft to actually haul the bags back and forth out into the field,
Mhm.
and we could fit 12 on there pretty reliably. And just kind of the way it clipped underneath the regular cargo grid actually allowed it to work very functionally. But yeah, sadly, no longer working right now. Hopefully they get that fixed, because I'd love to put the raft into use as kind of the bag transit specialist.
That kind of fits with Argo's whole theme. I often talk about how lore definitely informs the gameplay, because lore is the first thing that CIG thinks about when they produce new gameplay, new ships, and so on and forth. And it's the last thing they think about. So they kind of go for what's the context of this gameplay of loop or this ship in the verse, because they already have the sort of generic background. And once it gets through and it's been developed and it's the last stages, then the lore team comes back, the narrative team comes back, and then sort of fleshes that out more and really details all of the stuff to kind of really make sure that the gameplay makes sense. And the thing about Argo is that Argo has sort of evolved from its original sort of just, it's the thing that the people that make the MPUV into this infrastructure support system. And so the raft being able to carry not only ore pods, but of course the ore pods which the mole has, it makes a lot of sense that it should be able to be that sort of infrastructure hauler, sort of almost, now it's kind of more like a barge rather than a ship, to be able to carry those large number of things, just like slap it on the bottom. The the max PUV now, since it's just basically a bigger NPUV. So I'd like to see that. Yeah, it's just I think it's just really glitchy right now. The new, it's even a weird design for the cargo
Yeah.
grid. It's just like the weird pattern they have. So
Yeah, and I think the positioning of the tractor beam on it, it's a really odd angle to try and interact because you're basically like directly sideways onto the grid.
mhm.
If you have some type of elevation above that plane, that will make sorting and stacking a lot easier.
Yeah, yeah. The I think similar to the Cutlass, but the Cutlass tractor beam is above. It's like it's higher than the grid, and you go down, you look down at the grid rather than this. It's kind of more side on. You're right.
Yeah.
Um, all right. Let's move on to the thing we were talking about earlier as well. That the sort of the near future. Like, what does industry look like at the end of this year? Red.
I think it really comes back to the why, right? Why are people mining? Why are people salvaging? What is the purpose right now? It has been just to make credits, right, and buy spaceships and buy equipment. Um, Now it's kind of transitioning, like you're mining the Hathor event to get gemstones. You know, you're working on your Wicklow rep, or you're selling those off to other players for pretty good chunks of change. Um, we need crafting, right? The future should include that, so you have something more to do than just trade your refined ore as a trade commodity, right? You need to be able to take that into and start building, you know, building more components, specializing things. But that crafting and base building is really, I think, what they need to drive towards to make all of that work.
Major, same question to you. Where is industry going this year?
Um, I guess I can only talk about it in so far as my hopes and dreams go. Of course, T farm when
Yeah, yeah.
on a more serious note, I said earlier I like about the current event. I like the fact that people from different gameplay backgrounds have to, or ideally want to come together. That industrial gameplay contributes to something outside the scope of just doing the hauling and mining for the sake of mining and hauling, and making your alpha UEC go up. And that's kind of what I hope we'll be able to see more still this year. That yeah, I'm going to say it again, to really have a purpose to see. That's why I personally play multiplayer games over single player space games, of which we talked about it earlier, Paul.
Yeah.
That exists, that also have fairly full-fledged simulated economies and stuff like that, where you have, as a player, you are a minor part of the universe, but still what you do has an effect on the whole. And that's the one thing also for industrial gameplay that I hope we'll be seeing more, step by step, slowly but steadily. That if I accept a holding contract, if I do mining, at some point I know this will have a minuscule, but it will have an effect somehow on the ever evolving economy. And yeah, so that's kind of my probably unrealistic hope for this year, for that to
I don't think it's
continue.
I don't think it's too unrealistic. I think it's kind of what I see what CIG seems to be shooting towards. It's kind of both of what you said. First off, obviously, the industry is now geared towards crafting. Crafting and base building is now the ultimate goal of industry. Industry is designed around building cool things or building your new space station, your new space base, whatever. And all of it is now set up to support that sort of thing. But I also think it's to specifically drive players together. So in order to get the best materials to go crafting, you need to know where to go, and in order to protect yourself from The other people looking for that, or to stake your claim on that and fight off people, you need to have people who are combat based in order to, but you can't just mine. You also need to have somebody who can refine it, and then you need to have people who can haul that cargo, because mining ships are going to be limited. You don't want to have to constantly fly back and forth. We already have a little bit of that cross pollination now with mining, or at least we used to, with having mining, saddlebags being able to removed and loaded on cargo ships and flying. We happened to accidentally, well, my organization did a salvage event. We just kind of went out to go practice salvaging and what it was like. And we stumbled upon a player Polaris, which was completely abandoned and almost nearly perfect. So we practiced the whole, like, how do you pull everything out? And so we salvaged just about every single torpedo that was on that thing, and then had it between an average of 2 to 4, because we had 2 at one point, then we had 3, then we had 4, and then we backed down to 2. Vultures just single-hand, like slowly mulching that thing up. And that process was very interesting, because it basically took us 2 full freelancer maxes, completely full to the gills of like construction materials, RMC, weapons, torpedoes, missiles, everything we could strip off that thing to take it back and forth. And that process of not only hauling, but also not only salvaging, but hauling things in and out, because we had to like take it back to a hangar, pull them out of the hangar, load them up on the cargo lift, take it down, go back out. That sort of process was very interesting, because it was a nice sort of cross pollination between those two groups, which you typically don't see a lot of in the verse. And I see that's sort of the direction they're going for in support of crafting. But part of the crafting design and base design ideas is to force players to, you have to be here together now. You have to, you're a miner. It's not going to make a lot of sense to try to go from Pyro all the way to Stanton to get your stuff refined. It makes a lot more sense to find a player who can refine your materials and either buy the material from you or use it for something else. Or so I think that is the near future. I think all of our hope is that CIG manages to get that stuff done by the end of this year at the very least. But it's CIG, it's Star Citizen. I don't know if that's going to be the case. I still think it might be the case, but
Yeah.
good.
Have you run the event start to finish with the laser platforms yet?
I have not gotten it to work.
Both of you? No. So
I'm not. I've been watching my former org friends finish it from, but I'm personally, full disclosure, I'm not a ground
gameplay
guy, so I rarely leave my spaceship.
So we've run it a couple of times, and it takes a lot. We had 18 people in our crew that we were able to do it yesterday, right? But that was 18 people. We had a fully crewed Polaris. We had several support fighters, and 2 people out of those 18 were doing logistics at any given time. That was people getting ground support, collecting the batteries. Then once the actual cave opened up, only 2 of us were able to get down in, because we were dealing with combat, like enemy players coming in trying to, we had A1s trying to drop bombs on the mining site, and so it takes a lot to be able to get those. And I feel like I can appreciate, as someone that likes doing the multiplayer and the large scale org stuff, I can appreciate that event, especially having some of the more rare resources locked behind it. But as a solo player, I can see that being absolutely frustrating. I feel like there's probably maybe half a dozen solo players that were just going out to check out the event. They saw what was going on and they ditched out. Like 1 or 2 unlucky ones flew all the way in and got caught in the whole hornet's nest of combat. But I feel like there's got to be some balance, but also like larger orgs should be willing to maybe sell those, to individual players, someone that maybe uh, can't have the support to get in and out, like a larger scale org does.
Yeah, I agree. I think there's definitely needs to be. I mean, that leads to the discussion we had 2 weeks ago on it, and I think a lot of people took the wrong message from what we were talking about, which was like, why do you hate this mission? It's like none of us really hated A Line in Mine. I've attempted it
Yeah.
multiple times, never been able to finish it because of bugs. But the problem I
Yeah.
always had with Line in Mine is that it felt like it was designed around a specific number of players to play the event, not 500. It was designed
Yeah.
for 32v32 in a map, not 500 people being able to throw in a everyone with like 4
Mhm.
Polarises fighting over it. So either they need to re-scope that and fix some things, especially since it's the only way to progress in certain aspects. Like we know it's going to be the main way you get resources for the main storyline. So it's going to force people into that unless there needs to be more pathways for solo players to engage with this new stuff. I still think it's important that these sort of different gameplays merge, especially with more with support systems like player trading and those sorts of things. But I also think that there needs to be some solo ability with those sorts of things. All right, I think we got the last big question, though I do want to talk a little bit about this because going forward, and especially with A Line in Mine, the question about risk versus reward is a big one. So, Major, I'll start you off in this one. How do you envision, or what's the current status of Star Citizen's risk versus reward when it comes to like industry gameplay? Because I know you have some experience with the sort of other side of the spectrum when it comes to the non-industry sort of thing. Um, you know, so what in your vision or in your experience with both that side and of course with the current industry, where should that risk versus reward lie in your mind?
I think that's a very interesting question that also partly touches on what we were just talking about, this cross-pollination of gameplay loops, right? Because on the one hand, this is going to help us to help CIG moving forward for the whole player base to maybe get more aligned, again, in terms of what kind of game is it that we're playing? What kind of game do we want Star Citizen to be? And on a related note, PvP, PvE, lawful side of things, piracy side of things. I used to be in the past involved with a smaller piracy org, and so I've seen that side of industrial gameplay with a few extra steps where you also basically pull boxes if you're lucky, but you have to take care of your other things before you get to hauling. But yeah, this I think the question for me would be that there's a few factors that come into play there. Isn't that this question of insurance? We saw with the hauling missions, we've got the contracted cargo as a means to not encourage pirates to pirate PvE. I want to say hauling players, because basically the contracted cargo is useless to pirates. But what about in these cross-pollinating gameplay loops? What about asset protection in general? Whether it's your personal assurances, if I get involved with a wider scope of industrial gameplay that also gets me in touch with other players. How do we encourage people who maybe prefer to play more on the PvE side of things? How do we encourage them to take that step and to consider grouping up with other people of other skills or other ways to play the game? I think that's that's for me something connected with this risk versus reward, right? What's the reward? What's the reward beyond just, well, I can make a lot of money by just solo hauling or solo mining. Why would I sign up for any risky stuff that maybe involves teaming up with combat pilots just because that's a larger event that maybe isn't all that profitable for me as a solo player.
Okay. Red Monster, same question to you. This
Not
sort
sure
of
if that
risk
answered the
versus
question
reward.
in any way. I think I
Well,
digressed there a little bit.
it's hard for me to answer the question in terms of like how to do it, because like risk versus reward is a thing, and I think
Yeah.
like no one is currently satisfied with the risk versus reward balance. So you kind of went over it. It's hard to really put that into a question, but like the risk versus reward as it is now and in the future, especially as it relates to industry and its cross pollination with other gameplay loops. Red Monster.
Yeah. Risk versus reward. I see that, we kind of see a balance with that with the Hathor event. We see that with mining and pyro. And I will say, like the last patch, mining in Stanton has been broken on like half of the surfaces. So, with my group, we run almost exclusively in pyro right now because everyone's doing the event. They're trying to do the laser platform. There's plenty of dogfighting opportunities over there rather than, kind of with piracy. You're trying to shoot fish in a barrel, but you realize you've got one or two guppies way down at the bottom, right?
Mm.
It's sparse still, even with the 500 server cap, because it's more difficult to locate those players, especially since a lot of times you're going out, you're mining, coming right back in. There's not a lot of time spent in between. Um, the high value minerals are over in Pyro. We see that with Rixite and Styleron. But yeah, it's about being able to locate those. They can do better for the overall risk versus reward, I think, so that solo players can really get into something that doesn't require a big org to run an orbital laser platform, right? And they have something like that with the Genolite that you can find in caves, but it's an exploration thing. It takes a long time to get in and out. And um, realistically, overall, like what you're doing for the industry is not paying nearly as much if you were just out there dogfighting, right?
Mhm.
People can run bounties and just make bank. And if you're out there running bounties and you have a salvage crew coming behind, like you're getting paid twice. So
Yeah. No, I think the balance is currently the problem with the balance of risk versus reward is it flips all over the place. It
Mhm.
could be here, but then it's going to go over here. So like in the past, it's been salvage. You make some money with salvage. It's just almost no threat. You can do the salvage contracts and or go salvage a panel, and the likelihood of you being ambushed in such a huge space is so low that there's almost no risk. So you're just making bank with almost no effort. The same thing was as in the past with trading. Certain commodities are just absolutely stupidly profitable, so people would just go do that. And there was some risk because some people would set up in some of those areas which were stupidly profitable, but typically there's more than one location, so you could easily get in and out, or you could easily like avoid people. So, that's been in the past where industry just you know stands above, head and shoulders above combat in terms of making money quickly. And then on the other side, there's been times like I think right now is a good example where you can make a ton more money just doing combat contracts because you could just go in, quickly kill people and leave. There's no time sink really in terms of like maintenance or anything else like that. Um, and that time investment I think is a huge factor because risk versus reward directly correlates to credit per hour ratio. And I think the reason why that is currently is because there's just no reputation, and reputation has to be there. And if without reputation, we really don't see any of that risk reward gameplay go in there because it's just so you could buy everything with credits right now. There's no reason to do anything but credits. And there are some cool things like people are doing Wickelos so they can get the Polaris. And that's neat to be able to let people do that in game. But there needs to be more than just I can get a ship. It needs to be components, it needs to be access, it needs to be safety. There needs to be some other aspects in the reputation system or that you can unlock that you can't just buy with a credit. Um, and I think that's really the issue with risk versus reward because uh, piracy is a great example of something that should be very risky and high reward, but it currently not really is. It has some risk involved, but the reward is also almost negligible. It's one of those things where you either hit it super big and you're set, but you spent like 6 hours waiting to get super big, or if you luck out and you manage to go to an area that's high volume, and the likelihood of you also getting attacked by other players is still pretty high. So there's a high risk, but then there's also times where it's like there is no risk at all. You can just walk in and seal club people and take their stuff and leave.
Yeah.
So it sort of swings all over the place. And I think the big component when it comes to risk versus reward, especially with industry, has to be reputation. There's going to have to be some way of using reputation as a means to mitigate some of these issues for, like I said, safety, equipment. Ships good, but ships shouldn't be the main focus, or speed even. Like I can now do things faster because I have access to this facility that I wouldn't have if I didn't have the reputation. So. All right, let's talk about long term. Let's talk about the future of industry in terms of significant time. 1.0 Star Citizen. What should people be looking at the industry gameplay as for that sort of perspective? I'll start with you, Red.
Yeah, I mean, I could say a lot about it. Obviously, base building and player-owned refineries, player-owned shops, your crafting and the recipes you're going to be learning. That's all fed by industry. Like mining and salvage, it's the start of the supply chain for all of this. We go in, and I think what players can look for in the future, if you're an individual, you can go and establish yourself as a small-time specialist and kind of a specialty shop on a smaller scale, where orgs, larger groups, they'll be able to put out a lot more organized complexes, run things at scale, have a lot of these additional resources and more of the exclusive stuff. But I think the orgs are going to become their own reputation dealers at that point, saying, okay, like we have a shop here for everyone, right? That you can buy some basic components, or we also have this other gated shop with the high tier mining lasers, the high tier ore pods that can store more, the specific rare resources that we don't sell to everyone. Um, that based on a combination of the specific industrial promises they've made, concepts they've told us, and then the org reputation that they've discussed. I think that plays in together, and kind of helps feed that, because yeah, we want to be able to mine to progress, right, and salvage to progress. You want these things so that eventually you can say, okay, like I have the best outfitted Orion in the verse, right? And yeah, let's go for a ship tour. It's like the CIG cribs, come, pimp my ship, that type of stuff. Like that's, I think, what we're going to want to see in the future. And, with the ability to do that via, the supply, crafting, refining, all of that kind of pulling together to make that happen.
Okay. Major Star stuff. Your vision. What do you think CIG is shooting for, or what you would like to see 1.0 when it comes to the industry as a gameplay?
Banu Merchantman?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Most
Paul-
certainly not. Most
Does
certainly
Paul
not.
have a merchantman?
I do. I
as
have
well?
I have an
Okay.
original merchantman, 250
We are-
merchantman.
We are 3 for 3 over here.
Banu Merchantman Owners Club. The Sulis.
Yeah.
I mean, my personal long-term vision for the game might differ a little bit because, again, my dream long-term vision is still to have a tea farm somewhere, whether it's planet bound or ship bound, doesn't matter all that much. But that's something. So farming, agriculture, all that stuff. But on a more realistic note, in the more near term, if 1.0 is near term, I'm all about NPC AI driven stuff and see that be implemented more into the game. So questions like how will player-driven economy, how will that interact with NPC-driven elements? The way we currently see NPC combat pilots, NPC NPC stuff there. Will we see more NPC, for example, NPC cargo haulers that just go between then player bases or NPC bases and contribute to the then hopefully fully simulated economy? And how will those two things come together? Related to that, then scarcity of material that's required for, we mentioned base building, crafting, ship repairs. Right now we just land our ship and we click a button and it costs us some credits, and then yahoo, the ship is repaired. I can see that being a bit more complex in the future. Maybe you can repair your ships only at certain stations where they have the facilities to repair your ship, where they have the materials to repair your ship. So add a bit more immersion, also via the industrial elements.
Okay. I people are asking in chat, what's a tea farm? Like tea, chai, the thing you drink, the thing that Americans like to throw in the ocean. That thing.
Yeah,
you know?
that one exactly. No, basically, I mentioned I'm IRL. I work as a tea specialist, so of course, while Star Citizen is kind of my escape from that reality sometimes, I would like to also see some form of let's say agriculture in game, and whether or not we'll have to wait for a certain ship to be then implemented way post 1.0 or not remains to be seen. But I think from what I hear, like there's quite a few players who would like to see agriculture, like even planet, settlement-based agriculture, to become a thing. Is that realistic or not? No idea. Most likely not 1.0. But I would like to own a tea farm on a planet or a moon, and have NPCs and players come and I'll sell the processed tea leaves to the highest bidders.
Yeah, I'm with you on that one. I'm of the I want to make a distillery and take things and make good booze, good the whiskey, vodka, the so on and so forth to sell. It's just I think that is part of industry. I know someone in chat was like, abandoned merchantman is not an industry ship. It is, because selling in terms of a player economy or even NPC economy, as well as transport, is still part of the industry loop.
Hashtag supply chain, right?
Yeah.
Like that. Transport ships and ships that sell goods from the ship even is going to be a huge part of that supply chain.
Yeah.
If we want things to be interconnected
and you're not wrong about the farms. I think there's a lot of people who just, like, the number of people I have heard who just say, I just want to go build a ranch or a farm in the middle of nowhere and be done. I'm like, that for a space game, there's a lot of people who want to be like farmers.
Yeah, I would set up a creamery, nice cheeses and ice cream. And,
yeah.
But
one may dream.
The distillery, it's going to be private reserve stuff. So,
But yeah, a lot of the stuff we've heard on for a long time. We've heard about a long time. Star Sim, player-driven economy. These sorts of ideas are things that CIG's talked about, but I think it's important to understand the difference between what Star Sim and what a player-driven economy and what like reputation is in theory, and then what it is in practice. And I think the big thing to take away from industry when it ties into these things is that it is the lifeblood of all of it. Industry is the backbone of the gameplay. Without industry, you won't get all of the things that allow for anything else to happen, like exploration or data running or people transports or combat or FPS combat or any of the other gameplay loops, bounty hunting, piracy. All of these loops rely on the cargo, salvage, mining loops. Those three are the super important, like, backbones of how the gameplay should function. It's logistics. It's Star Citizen is always said is a secret logistics game. It's all about managing the flow of resources and knowing who needs to go where and cost evaluations for fuel versus the distance. All those sorts of things are going to be involved in Star Citizen. It's just not as much of a pull out the spreadsheet and break it down as Eve is. But I've done it. My org's already started to do those sorts of things because it's like you need to start figuring out, hey, it's going to cost money to just pull out the Polaris every single time you need to go into a combat situation. And that thing's expensive to refuel and to refit and to repair. So, yeah, I think the future is still bright for this sort of industry. But for like 1.0, but again, it's logistics is the name of the game before it comes to it. Any other for closing thoughts on industry? And I'll get last question. This is sort of into the title and thumbnails of this. I'll start with you, Major. Is this a good year for industry based off of what we've seen and based off what we see right now? Do you think this year is going to be a good year for the industry gameplay loops?
I'm really not sure if I'm qualified to talk to that point all that much. I've got a gut feeling that with what you said earlier, also that we've seen the new ships that we've seen are all industry ships or vehicles of sorts. So does that mean? I'm sorry. I really wouldn't know what to. I'll hand this to Red.
All right, Red. Your thoughts?
Yes. I feel like industry gameplay is back. I will say my favorite part about the Drake Golem was the price point, right? Because previously, mining and salvage had an entry-level pledge price. Now, this isn't talking about buying it in-game after a month of playing, right? This is right out of the door. The first thing you're doing is mining and salvaging. Those price points was $155 or more. And that is steep, even in today's industry of DLCs and early access premium packages, enough that it turns players off, right? They see that and they won't even entertain the idea of getting into that type of gameplay. Not to mention that we have the Orion that's like $625 or more, right? We have these larger scale ships they're still trying to sell that your barrier to entry was $155. Now we have something that is a lot more reasonable, that's on par with a AAA title game, a fully released one, of course, but you're pledging to get into, right, to that gameplay loop at a much more reasonable value, that I think puts it in line with, we already have dogfighters, we've got, cargo ships, we have, racing ships that are all within that price point. So that, along with the fact that we're getting an RSI starter, salvager. The Geo kind of works as a great combination between FPS and vehicle-sized mining, but it also is just super fun to play. Like, it's getting people involved in mining that they just want to go out and see the laser, and get there. It's going to be really affordable to buy in game when you get started, and I think that either the Rock, the Geo, like they both had their benefits, but I think that's getting players into it, and we are seeing the mineral diversity start to happen, and I hope that sometime in the next 12 months we'll see the ore resources remapped to the 1.0 version, kind of the mineral quality as the main factor of what's a good rock versus a bad rock, where it's a single mineral, we have the quality of value for that, and that's what people can go in and break down. And hopefully they keep some of the aspects of the current gameplay, like kind of those jackpot moments, the good breaks versus bad breaks. These are all aspects that have made mining really entertaining, that they should carry on. And then combine that with the salvage. We need to be able to get resource siphoning. We need to get more complex materials. We need to be able to actually salvage those components and sell them for a profit, or be able to equip them on our ships as as a way to kind of make salvaging and scrapping of vehicles a viable gameplay path. So
Yeah, I 100% agree. I would say the other thing I might add to that in terms of this year is that I think because the direction is towards crafting and base building, even if we don't get crafting and base building this year, we're going to probably get a lot of those nuance. That alone, that movement towards there means that they have to start thinking about, as you said, quality. We have to start thinking about salvage in terms of what you're getting out of the materials from the salvage, not just construction materials and RMC. I think those are going to go away in the near future and be replaced with nickel, titanium, iron, aluminum, copper, gold, all the different materials that would make up a ship, rather than the generic slurry. And also I think refining. That's the huge. That's part of base building, and it's going to have to be the priority. I
now,
think.
do you think
Go ahead.
refining has to come before crafting?
Yes. Well,
Yeah.
maybe not crafting. No, I think crafting. Yeah, before crafting, I think they'd have to have refining in there. Player refining, at least. I don't think it's going to be. I think it's going to be kind of like how salvage is now, where it's like tier 0, sort of just, here you go.
Push a button.
Yeah,
and,
push a button
yeah.
and maybe manage some power levels, but nothing like in depth and detailed. We kind of have the Thanos snap right now with the destruction of various things. I think we're gonna have something similar to that. So, but I do think that because of all of those things they have to push that direction to get 1.0 and get the salvage and base building, or salvage crafting and base building in. CIG even right now seems to be very dedicated to having those in probably by the end of the year, because it's CIG. Let's be honest. They'll build and build and build, and then something like August, September, they'll be like, the year's almost over. Let's just make sure all these things are done and throw them out there, even if they're good or not. Whether they're good or not, but they're going to have to set up a lot of steps along that way, and as they're putting those steps along that way, it's going to make industry more nuanced. It's going to make it more engaging. It's going to make it more fun. And I think that this is the year for the industry player. Whereas like last year, I feel was very much the combat players year. This is going to be the industry players, and maybe next year we'll see more of the exploration and the ancillary sort of gameplay loops that aren't directly located to the main bulk of the gameplay. So,
Yeah, last year was
But I
definitely
like-
about scale, right? We got the Polaris, we got server caps increased. There's a lot of scale they pushed for, and I think it's going to be interesting to see now that they have some scale. They're seeing the network performance. They're working on that, but bringing it back to the core, right?
yeah, Major, you said something?
Yeah, I just was going to reiterate on what Red said about the golem, and that they really, for the first time, arguably, we have a mining starter ship, because the prospector, I guess most people considered it the starter, the entry level ship to mining, but you basically had to choose between either rock mining or prospector mining to as an entry, and now you have an actual starter ship. We've had starter ships for gameplay loops that don't even exist yet for the longest time. Now we have a starter ship for mining, so they seem to be setting up to also be pulling in more players, and enable them to just jump right into the industrial gameplay. So arguably that serves to show that they are putting a focus on mining. On industrial gameplay this year, one way or the other.
Yeah. Good times, bright future, I think, is for this year. Thank you for joining us, Major and Red. Make sure you go check out Red Monster SC on Twitch and YouTube, and make sure to check out Major Star Stuff on YouTube, and it's Intergalactic Tea House on Twitch, right? And if you did enjoy this, make sure you hit that follow button if you're watching this on Twitch, and if you're watching this after the fact on YouTube, make sure you like the video, subscribe for more content, and hit the bell icon to be notified when these release. As always, I want to hear your thoughts down below on, do you think we're huffing the copium? Is this not the year for industry? Do you agree that the industry seems to be on the upswing, or any other your thoughts on the industry as the game right now, as it is now or in the future? Let me know down in the comments below. We're going to be taking a few minutes break for those of you who are watching this live, and then when we come back, we'll be taking questions and answers. Our After Dark section, which I think Red was the one who came up with the idea, that name. I don't remember. It might have been. But it's sort of stuck around. So yeah, thank you for watching, and like I always say, hope to see you someday.